You're listening to Pod 99, a podcast by Wealth 99 that helps the 99% take control of their financial future. We talk to experts from across the alternative asset space who share their insights on new wealth, how to build it, and how to keep it. Let's get on with the show. Hey folks, Andy here. Welcome to the Wealth 99 podcast, the podcast that helps the 99% take control of their financial future. We talk to experts from within Wealth 99 and from across the futurist and alternative assets space, experts who are here to share their insights and wisdom. My guest today is Ross Dawson. Ross is a globally recognized futurist. He's a keynote speaker, he's an entrepreneur, and he is a reasonably prolific author as well. He has lived his life immersed in information and information technology for the last, decade or more, really. Ross is also the founding chairman of the Advanced Human Technologies Group. Hey, welcome to the show, Ross.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks, Andy.
So, look, I mean, I've given you a little bit of an intro there, Ross. So I think, you know, the listeners and watchers will have gathered that you're a futurist. So I suppose that means you try and understand how the world is moving forward as, exponential technology due to human creativity continues to advance and progress what it means to be human. So that's kind of a fancy introduction, but there's lots to talk about today. Maybe do you want to just give yourself a little bit of an intro as well, Ross?
Sure. So I've done many things over life. So I worked in computing and stockbroking and financial publishing and journalism. So I've written 5 books, which have taken me across many different industries. So I did a lot of work across financial, professional, media, technology, education, government, healthcare, retail, sort of a lot of industries. But more than being the futurist, as I'm saying, I know what's going on. My job is to help other people to be more effective at thinking about the future. So I work a lot with boards, executive teams, and a lot more diverse people on thinking about how it is that making sense of the world in order to make better decisions today so that hopefully we can shape a better future.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And that is so important. And, really, I suppose that brings us to, I think it's perhaps your most recent book, but it's certainly extremely relevant to the world that we find ourselves in 2023, Ross. I'm talking about the book, which is called Thriving on Overload. So I suppose it's all about, finding different means and strategies to deal with the constant input of information and data, the superabundance of information that is today's world, Ross?
Yes, essentially the brain is the most amazing thing we know in the universe by a long shot. However, it is limited. So we have the cognition of our minds, which is absolutely extraordinary, but it is limited. And now we have built through, as you were saying, our technologies, we've built a world where we have created far more information than we could ever consume. So we have finite minds and infinite information. So this means that our brains are not well suited to our environment. Our brains have been trained to look for novel information, dopamine-fed reward systems, leading us to forage for information, where in fact, wherever we turn, there is unlimited information. So our default modes of our brains are not really functioning well. So we have to essentially be aware. We require metacognition. That is, we need to be aware of our own cognition and understand where it is failing us, where it is supporting us, and how it is we can improve that. So in the book, I point to what I call the 5 powers for success in a world of exponential information, which is ways to essentially take unlimited information and pull that into making better sense of the world so that we can make better decisions. We can see opportunities before other people. We can connect the dots of all of the extraordinary change in ways that enable us to keep ahead of accelerating change.
Yeah, interesting, and it's kind of it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, Ross? Because in on one sense, it's incredible that we live in this time where, for the first time ever, we have essentially access to all of the information that humanity has ever produced. But it's like, to give a kind of real world example, it's almost it's the paradox of choice. So a good way to understand that is if you're subscribed to a number of different streaming platforms. Say you've got everything from Apple TV to Netflix to Amazon Prime, all the other ones that are available locally in each country. Sometimes you sit down on the couch after dinner and you're like, man, I'm just swamped by information. I can't even decide what TV show to watch. It's that overwhelming sometimes, Ross.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so we have a world of abundant information, super abundant information. There's all we could ever want. I think one point here is that this means that we do have we need to change our mindset. And so one is say, this is completely overwhelmed. I'm swamped. I'm overloaded. That's one response. Or another response is to say, I have all of the information I could ever want to achieve what I want. So more than ever before. If you want to achieve anything, the resources are there and you can choose. So we have abundance. Now, in an abundant world, that in fact leads to two different responses. One is basically overwhelmed and you don't necessarily function very well. The other is that you use what you've got extremely well. So an example of that is food, where today, there are more super fit people than ever before, and there are more obese people than ever before. So you got the choices. You can, anybody can pick up the most, body destroying food you can imagine. Tastes good, but it ain't good for you. And there's other people who are saying, all right, I'm going to get the super kale smoothie and not even going to look at these other things. So the same thing with information. There are so many people that are just getting swamped. They're just picking up their phone, looking at what's going on, and they're just going all over the place. And they're really going backwards. Now, I think of this difference between cognitive evolution and cognitive devolution. And essentially, by default, if we use what our brains would normally tend to do in our information-rich environment, we are going to get dumber. Yet, we have the choice to be able to use that information intelligently, to structure things, to be able to make sense of the world in a way that our cognition evolves and we become more intelligent. And to a point, I think there's so many forces that are pulling us apart as a society. And that includes, and as I suggested, in terms of health and fitness, and definitely in terms of our cognition and our ability to make sense of this extraordinary world.
Yeah, very much so, Ross. All right, well, let's just, as we finish off talking about this particular book, again, it's called Thriving on Overload. As much as maybe it's difficult for people such as ourselves, Ross, we're maybe of a particular vintage. Sometimes it's hard to give 18-year-olds, if you like, or teenagers advice on how to process information in this world, because they've sort of grown up in this information heavy environment. They know nothing else. But nonetheless, let's try and pick out a couple of pieces of advice. What would you say to perhaps young people who are looking to carve a path forward in their life, and perhaps they are looking to achieve significantly better outcomes in terms of health? You talked about health. That's a great example. Another one would be wealth. How to create wealth. How do you figure out what is good information versus bad information in this crazy social media algorithm driven world of information abundance?
So one of the first things is the advice is same for all ages, is we do need to recognize that multitasking is not real. And we do need to carve out periods of time for particular activities. And so being focused on, having our minds being present in one space. And this requires training. And part of it is saying, look, it's fine to scroll through Instagram or TikTok as long as there is a bounded time to it. And so you can say, all right, for whatever period of time, it could be long, it could be short, saying, I am going to do that. And I know I'm going to do that. I'm not going to be, kick myself for doing it because I've said that this is time for doing that. But at the end of that, you stop that. And then there are times when you are engaged with one other task, which could be reading something you found really interesting, or to be able to think. And so one of the great tools which we have, which is now augmented by technology, but you can still use paper and pencil, is visual frameworks for thinking. And part of this, I think, for anybody at any age, is to be able to say, all right, I'm trying to make sense of tokenization, of DAOs, of new investment structures, whatever they may be, and to actually sit down and say, all right, well, these are the pieces, these are how these fit together, and this is this is the sense that this is how I make sense of this and have a distinctive view of that. And that requires you to actually go and see, well, what are other people in the space thinking? It requires you to go and read that, and you say, all right, I'm going to pull these pieces together. I'm going to make a choice of what these are and collect those. And now there's more and more technology tools. A lot of, in fact, I've seen my preteen daughters at times use Notion for a variety of tools. And so these are ones where you can actually start to structure your ideas and your information. So I think that idea, the fundamental idea of watch what you are doing, be aware of what you're doing, this idea of metacognition, thinking about and observing and being aware of what it is you're doing with your information. And first step is simply saying, can I see anything which might help me? And the other thing is just being able to say, let's make sure that for a period of time, I'm doing one thing, then I stop doing that one thing and I do another one. In terms of the wealth, I think I do go back to finding the things which you want to spend the time on, to delve deep in, to understand. And you can't force yourself to do that. And I think really wealth creation, I believe in ventures rather than financial assets or wealth creation. And so this means finding ventures of what it is that people pay for. And this is one of the things where it's information. You're observing people, you're seeing what's going on, you're seeing what other people are doing, finding ideas on how to improve that, and being able to create tools to see that. So this is this sensitization to opportunities in a rapidly moving space. The faster the world is moving, the more opportunities will emerge. And this is a sense of you do need to be looking around you at behaviors of people, whether that's interpreted through screens or just physically or whatever you are seeing. What are people behaving? What are you seeing? And what is it that could be created, which will create value? And ultimately, wealth for yourself comes from creating value for others. That is the fundamental equation.
Wonderfully said, Ross. Thank you for that. And what I really enjoy about talking to people such as yourself, futurists, really is you have such a broad range of interests. So I think we should touch on a few other, I suppose, futurist related topics that are especially pertinent to the Wealth 99, Pod 99 audience. So I'm thinking crypto, I'm thinking tokenization, I'm certainly thinking AI. I'm sure you've got lots to say on all of these things. So let's just skim across them, I suppose. Let's start with AI. Ross, I know you've done quite a lot of work, writing, consulting on the topic of AI. And, it's funny how AI has very much gone from the theoretical to the practical, really just in the last, 12 months or so, as the sudden release of these large language models has been made available to everyday people. And, it's not hard to extrapolate out and see that our world is slowly and then suddenly starting to change. Yeah, implications of AI, Ross. What are we thinking?
Well, there's plenty to talk about there, but I suppose that the key point is that there were extraordinary capabilities of AI before November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT was released. The difference is that these are now available to anybody. You had to be a data scientist or essentially an AI person to be able to tap the advantage of that before. So now anybody can access this. Just chat interface, you can actually interact directly with the AI, and this is part of that advancement of technologies. So it is this democratization. We can all access those capabilities. In fact, we can even give instructions, write code or do analysis on data and so on without having to know Python or R or anything else. So this changes the nature of how our brains and AI together create value. So my framing is humans plus AI, and it's very complementary to what I was describing around thriving on overload, which is around how it is we think better. So this is now we can say, well, how can AI help me think better and do better? And so I've created these frameworks where we say, what is it that AI is particularly good at, and what is it that humans are good at? And be able to weave these together into a workflow. So if we think about what is it you want to achieve, what it could be, building a better investment portfolio, it could be creating a beautiful work of art, it could be being able to build a plan for business, whatever it may be. And the idea of driving down, saying, well, what is it that I can create the most value in there, and where is that AI can create the most value? And let's weave these together. This requires the skills to be able to use these tools well. We do need to understand that. And again, this is going to be one other divide. There are plenty of people that never even used ChatGPT or other tools like that. And there's plenty that spend a lot of their time working out how to use these better to create value. And this is just another divide. We do need to try these things. We do need the skills to be able to create them. But particularly, we need to go beyond, the tricks, the entertainment things of doing a rap about Elon Musk or whatever. We have to say, what is it that I'm trying to do in my life, and what is the ways I can break that down into elements where the AI can assist me? And the way I use AI, a lot of these tools, is essentially to help my thinking. When I'm thinking about things, I'm trying to say, well, are there any things which I'm missing there? Is there, what's justifications for this or against this? Or what else is there? How can I dig deeper into this in order so that I can understand this better? So these are tools that augment us. We have to be framed that way. And now it depends how we use them as the impact on society. It's going to transform work. It's going to make organizations smaller because more and more larger organizations can, essentially, do things more effectively than they had. But I do believe it will also lead to a proliferation of new entrepreneurial ventures, which are enabled by this. So this far more fluid economy, which is essentially driven by those who are best able to use these tools.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Ross. And I just see AI as being another extremely powerful tool in the toolkit. And it's about leverage, right? The more you can apply these tools, leverage them to your advantage, the more impact you can create in the world, the more value you can create in the world, potentially the more harm you can create in the world, depending on your motives. A quick question for you, though, Ross. You mentioned that you had kids, right, who are preteen or so, just coming up to high school. So do I. And a lot of listeners will as well. It's a really interesting time, I think, for those kids who are just beginning their high school journey, because they are entering an education system that is increasingly outdated for today's needs. And it's not really any fault of the teachers or the governments. It's really hard to keep an education curriculum up to date. But if that is the context, and you're a department head or something, would you be embracing tools like ChatGPT, or would you be trying to teach kids the old-fashioned way and just making sure that they can still read and write using pencil and paper, or is it both? What would you do? It's a tough question, Ross.
Well, all of these things, so you recognize, nothing is completely one-sided. You have to acknowledge both sides and challenges and opportunities. And so the issue with the opportunity from AI is personalized education and coaching and tutoring. And this is where we need to reframe the role of the teacher, and where the teacher is the human connection, the person who inspires. So the function of education should be to instill a love of learning. And a lot of education is broken because it makes kids hate learning. So the role of the teacher is not to get people to get particular grades. It's even to get people in their heads. It's making them love to learn, so they go out and do it for themselves, and they continue to do that after school. So the teacher is the inspirer, the connector, the person to have the conversation with, the person to bring them together to coalesce all of the resources they have, and that human connection. Whereas AI can provide now personalized education. Now, this has been the promise for a long time, and suddenly it's become real, where you can, for a particular learning style or a particular way of seeing the world, or in terms of particular things, you might love sports and you can use sports analogies and all your maths tutoring or whatever it may be, is to adapt and to create presenting ideas in ways that people will understand and students will understand them. So firstly, yes, and it's interesting that New York public school system was very quick off the bat to ban GPT across all of their school system. I think in the first few weeks of ChatGPT coming out. And then a few weeks ago, they said, well, actually, we're now bringing that back, and we recognize our students are not only going to find these useful, but they're going to live in a world where all of these tools are going to be in the workplace, and you have to use them anyway. So I think you do have to be careful that for example, students don't just write things in ChatGPT and submit that as their essay, because they're not learning through that. So we have to design different types of ways of schooling, which means you are using these tools appropriately, but in ways that teach you, and not as, I wouldn't use the word cheating, but not as shortcuts. Using these AI tools, it shouldn't be a shortcut to achieving your outcome of, writing an essay or whatever it may be. And again, that's why we need to restructure these things. So we have to sort of design new ways where these tools are being used as ways to help people to learn more, to understand more, develop their thinking, and to love learning.
Fantastic. So well said, Ross. And I think you're exactly right. That is the key. The teacher's role is to inspire a love of learning, and then, utilize all the wonderful technological tools at our disposal to give kids the ability to teach themselves, follow their passions, and learn how to apply leverage to create value in the world. Very nice. Right, I said we'd talk about crypto tokenization a little bit, Ross, and one of the key missions here at Wealth 99 is to make alternative assets available to the 99%, people who maybe haven't had these kind of financial opportunities. They used to be more limited to the elite, shall we say, in years gone by, but we've seen the democratization a little bit of these financial opportunities, and that is continuing to play out. And we see crypto and tokenization as one path forward to that further democratization of opportunity. All right, so I don't know, where do we start? Again, I mentioned before that as a futurist, you have opinions about all of these things, I'm sure, Ross. Crypto, what do you think?
So I'll probably they think a little bit differently than most of your other guests here. I guess firstly, crypto is built on built on blockchain, and I think that the ultimate thing here is blockchain is distributed ledger, and the value of that is extraordinary and as a tool for changing the economy. And I point in a way to tokenization as the manifestation of that, where we can start to build a more fluid economy. And I think that's one of the most interesting pieces, where we can take, for example, real estate or yachts or even traditional financial instruments and tokenize them so that we can get ownership without requiring large chunks of money. So you can be a homeowner of a token representing a fraction of a home as opposed to buying the whole home itself. So this we're creating now a more fluid economy where we can work more and more with breaking down the larger chunks of the economy where we can participate in more ways. And I think there's a lot of now ways of thinking about these. So these are still only really coming to market. But this is where we need to think about the diversification of our assets. To your point, you should just be able to access your public equities, and now and a few other investment assets, unless you had you were a sophisticated investor, professional investor, and had various levels of wealth. And so now this leads to diversification. So we now have the opportunity to have a more diverse portfolio, to invest in things where we see opportunities, whether or not we have the weight of wealth to be able to do that. Now, in terms of crypto, I think crypto, as we can traditionally think of, Bitcoins and Ethereums and other, vast array of other coins, essentially, there's two overlays. That one is the big case. Are you a true believer? As in, do you believe Bitcoin will go to hundreds of thousands, or whatever coin is going to be successful? But overlaying the macro case for the long term for crypto, it's all speculation. And so crypto traders are essentially speculating. It's an asset which goes up, goes down, a lot of volatility, a lot of things which influence that in all frames. And it is so people are speculating based on current information, which doesn't predict the future. One of the critical differences with crypto trading compared with some other asset trading is that there's basically a larger bid-offer spread. There's a greater cost. So essentially, you need to be more effective in your speculation in order to be able to beat the cost of trading in crypto, which is a far less which basically has a larger bid-offer spread than traditional financial instruments. So I think that, essentially I would say that in terms of crypto, if it's not long-term investing based on a case that you believe that that's going to go, the value is going to be substantially more in the higher, then anything which is shorter term is essentially speculation, which is fine as long as people recognize it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, Ross, I think it's short-term day trading crypto, day trading or anything is simply a bad idea, and unless you're actually a really good trader, and it takes 10 years to learn how to trade. And for most people, it's just not a good idea. You're much better off just having a long-term investment strategy and a diversified portfolio of assets that you have strong conviction in. One example might be gold and precious metals. So we have gold, silver, various precious metals available through Wealth 99, Ross, but in tokenized form. Again, it provides all the benefits of tokenization via blockchain, makes the asset more liquid, safer to store, easier to move in and out of, if you like, but still pegged to the real world value of gold and silver. So it just solves some of the problems of having to, buying and storing gold, obviously a little bit of a hassle, a little bit of pain. So that's one case for tokenization. Yeah, precious metals. Bitcoin, well, in my view, just Bitcoin makes sense just as a hedge against really the craziness of the world. And I'm sure in years to come, it might just seem strange that we give the power to make these financial decisions that affect the lives of so many millions of people around the world. A few random people can change the direction of various fiat currencies based on what they think is happening in the world. And we know that humans are fallible and prone to making strange decisions, whereas Bitcoin's monetary policy, as I'm sure you know, Ross, is just simply hard-coded. It is simply math. It is predictable. It is not controllable by a random, not even elected bunch of humans. And I just think there is potential value there. It is digitally scarce in an increasingly digital world, Ross.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge, part of the challenge is that we're inevitably moving to digital currencies, and the CBDCs are already here. We're going to see more of them. And one of the challenges, the on-ramps and the off-ramps from digital currency, to non-central bank digital currency to central bank digital currency. And the way things are going, it is going to be harder to get things in and out. Or, certainly there's tax authorities getting pretty good at being able to keep track of what's going on with your anti-money laundering and your know your customer type regulations. So one of the questions is the degree do we see this as true alternative, as almost distinct financial systems, as opposed to complementary, where they coexist and you're seeing a lot of flows between them. But at the moment, the regulation is making it pretty tough to get things in and out, certainly without the knowledge of the authorities. So that's one of the key dimensions, is the degree to which we have these as relatively distinct financial ecosystems, whereas ones which are truly integrated.
Absolutely. And look, you certainly still do need to play by the local laws in your local jurisdiction and make sure you're paying your taxes and things like that. But you're exactly right, Ross. There is varying degrees of regularity, certainty or uncertainty around the world as different government authorities try and lay the necessary frameworks for these new monetary rails. Look, Ross, it has been amazing talking to you today. I think we'll go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll just finish off with some rapid fire questions, see what you've got to say. So we'll be back in one moment. All right, we are back, and I'm with Ross Dawson. Ross Dawson is a globally recognized futurist, author, a keynote speaker, all of that good stuff. Ross, I like to finish each podcast just with a quick round of rapid fire, kind of hot take style questions. Are you up for it?
Sure, of course.
All right, Ross, question one for you. What is one piece of financial knowledge do you think that should be taught at schools?
Just discounting the time value of money is the most obvious one, but I think the other thing is simply the sophistication of the financial institutions with which are your counterparties, if you're going to engage. And I think you just need to know the reality is, if you're stepping into the market, you're dealing with Goldman Sachs. And they're pretty sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely. Know the playing field, know who you're up against, and what battles are worth fighting. Okay, what would you say is your most contrarian view on building wealth, Ross?
It's well, I'd say wealth is not just financial. And that's, I think, a don't measure everything in dollars. Wealth is more than money. And yes, it includes that, but it's a lot more than that. So make sure you're not measuring your wealth and your success only with dollars or pesos or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. Great perspective. Very much agree, Ross. But all right, if you were, say, 20 odd years old today and you knew what you knew now, what are one or two steps you might take towards securing you and your family's future?
Well, basically, save every month and invest in long-term, assets. And to be frank, I believe, tokenized real estate is great, but if you look at the stock market over the long time, it's done pretty well in compound interest. So save money, put it in anything that compounds and that grows over time. And that's, asset class, put it away, forget about it.
Yes, indeed. Good advice. Set and forget, long-term time horizon. Ross, you're the founding chairman of the Advanced Human Technologies Group. What is the Advanced Human Technologies Group?
So the Advanced Human Technologies Group is 4 companies, which covers a whole variety of domains. So there's some professional services, there's some publishing, Future Exploration Network helps organizations think about the long-term future. In Informivity, it's actually a recent, just formed in the last year, which is a startup which focuses on AI, the themes which I talked about before, using AI to complement our brains. So it's really a set of organizations. And one thing which is distinctive about it is based on almost exclusively part-time talent. So this is this thesis where I believe there's an extraordinary number of amazingly talented people who don't want full-time jobs. They want part-time work. And so I use that pool of people around the world, some locally where I am in Bondi Beach, some around the world, and building this alternative model for how organizations can function to be able to build essentially distributed enterprises.
I love it. All right. DAOs. Ross, is a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, is that a potential path forward in terms of exploring new means of governance for these increasingly advanced technological societies that we're building?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in the potential of DAOs. Excuse me. So I always go back to Vitalik Buterin's original framing of DAOs, where he described them as automation at the center and humans at the edges. So this is where we have a structure whereby human labor, talent, capabilities, work is put into a system whereby there's an algorithm that combines that to be able to work out who are the right people to contribute to that, how that's all combined, how it is value is distributed as a result. And so we have a lot of DAOs today, which none of which have really fulfilled that original vision. And part of it is we don't have the sophistication of the algorithms. A lot of them are just voting structures, which is fine, which is useful. It's still good. But I think there's still this potential for truly autonomous organizations, ones which are not just a bunch of people voting, but where human labor is combined with AI to be able to create entities that have a life of their own. And I'm really excited to see the next steps in that space.
Yeah, very well said. And I think that's kind of been the theme of today's podcast. Really, Ross, is just, the future is some kind of creative partnership between humans and AI, just human creativity, yes, leveraging the power of AI and technology to essentially, hopefully, create more and more value out in the world, the galaxy, the universe. Which feels like a nice place to finish off, really, Ross. So And to finish off, look, it'd be great if perhaps you could tell the listeners where they can find more about you and your various podcasts, books, all that stuff. I know you've got a number of websites. I'll certainly put some of them in the show notes. But if you want to just shout out your Twitter profile and your various where people can come and find out more about what you do and who you are, Ross, go for gold.
Sure. Well, there's rossdawson.com. My Twitter profile is Ross Dawson. I actually spend more time on LinkedIn these days. I'm actually thriving on overload.com is where my book resides, but though I'm actually just literally in the next week. So if you're not the first one to hear this episode, you can go to amplifyingcognition.com, which is where my podcast is migrating to, and which brings together the themes of thriving on overload and humans plus AI. And that's around how it is we amplify our ability to think well.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, Ross. Pleasure having you on. All the best, and bye for now.
Great pleasure to be with you.
All right, there you go. That was Ross Dawson live and direct from Bondi Beach, Australia. Yeah, very interesting guy. As I say, I like talking to people like Ross, futurists who just have a really good take on understanding just how quickly the world is changing and how it is really important and vital for every individual to do their best to try and stay up to date with what is happening, if only so that you can really leverage all of these tools, whether they be, the ability to invest in new forms of technological breakthroughs, such as, crypto or tokenized precious metals, or be able to use, creativity and productivity enhancing tools, such as the various AI tools. And man, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of new AI powered tools. I mean, just the staggering what is now possible. Even more staggering, of course, is just how quickly it is evolving. So, really interesting, really strange, but really wonderful time to be alive to witness all of this. How it all plays out, I don't know, listeners, but man, it is fun to be here with you along for the ride. Thank you so much for listening to Pod 99, brought to you, of course, by Wealth 99. Please do make sure you stay subscribed to the podcast so you know when each new weekly episode drops. But that is today's show, folks. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.